One day we'll get around to actually syncing that music or something similar with the opening of the program. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow, where our Wednesday night chat session for all things motorsport and beyond. As you can see, joining us tonight, we've got Peter Johnson, we've got Mark Jones, we've got Richard Outram joining us for another week of motorsport discussion. So thanks for joining us. If you got there and coming and added to the stage now, being fashionably late once again, the one and only Mr. David Stillwell, who is, whoops, hang on, where are we? There. Oh, he's on, he's via audio again. Are you there, David?
Good evening.
There you are. So, and where do we find you today?
David, good evening.
Where do we find you today?
I'm just finishing up some orienteering in Ivanhoe, Heidelberg. Just about to turn around and head home.
Well, there you are. Yes, we must discuss what orienteering is today. It sounds, I still think it's some sort of, sounds like competitive stalking to me, but never mind. We'll find out what it is one day. So
I should do well at that.
No, you've got to be able to run, Richard. That's the problem with
it. Yes. Catch me too quickly.
Angry husbands can find a lot of pace all of a sudden. But going well. Dave, was it last week that you guys were racing?
It was actually Michael was sharing with Ray Hislop. Unfortunately, I don't quite have the leave. I didn't quite have the leave available to make the trek over to. I was about to say the Bend, but what's it called now? Shell V Power Motorsport Park. For the second to last round of the Australian Production Car Series. Michael shared the car with Ray Hislop, who we know from decades of improved production racing in big V8 Fords. So getting behind the wheel of the Stillwell Family Racing Mach 1 was nowhere near a challenge for Ray. So it was really good to have him on board and give Michael some tips on how to best drive the car. And they ended up finishing third in class for the weekend. So an excellent result.
I saw that. It was a good performance overall, and you won. They also won best presented car and crew, I think, from the Maguires Award, I think.
Well, I think we get that purely because we've got a car that hasn't, because it's only been out for 2 events so far. It hasn't had an opportunity for many people to run into it yet. It's a well presented car because it's only done 2 or 3 events so far. So.
Well, yes, it was, but anyway, good performance. I didn't see much. Didn't get to see. I don't think I saw any of it on the weekend. Actually, it was all very confusing between what was happening there and what was happening up in Sydney at the Sydney Motorsport Park with the High Tech Oil Series. I sort of lost track of who was running where and when. So, and there was obviously there were other things on as well, But anyway, so and then joining us online, one of our regulars, Box is joining us again. G'day, Box. How are you? Good to catch up with you again as well. Now, coming up, I'll just let you know, of course, coming up this weekend, it's the Australian Motorcycle Grand Prix happening down at Phillip Island. This week on In Pit Lane, our special guest is Ella McCausland, 15 years old, competing in the Oceania Junior Cup. There on the weekend, and she was a really good guest, wasn't she? She
was,
yeah. She was very, very good, very impressive. So check her out tomorrow night at 9:00 on Channel 31, or on demand on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. She says a lot of good stuff, and she was I thought she did a really good job. She was very nervous when she came in, and she relaxed completely, and she was fantastic. So also our band. A bit different. I don't know was the band, and you'll be seeing there. I think as I pointed out, I think on the show, the funny thing was, when I don't know were playing, Ella was wearing had the earplugs in, and this is a person who races motorcycles, so it was a bit loud for Ella.
But
And,
Brett,
yes.
I'd certainly reflect that the racing in the Oceania Junior Cup. If you think that, say, some of the state level racing in Hyundai Excels or Formula V is exciting, with 4 or 5 cars across the line at the finish line, get set for some craziness, because I can understand why Ella was probably a bit nervous. There weren't 11 million people all around her all at once, making her feel comfortable. She had to carve a path for herself for a change, rather than be amongst a swarm. We often refer to them as a swarm of bees, because that's what it sounds like, and that's certainly what it looks like—a swarm of blue bees hurtling around the Phillip Island circuit. Amazing racing.
She mentioned this last night, and she was saying, and I'm sort of preempting things, but she was saying how much she just loved Phillip Island for that. She did race there last year, and she also raced at the state round earlier, late last year as well. As she would say, she absolutely loved it for that very reason. She said, look, with the slipstreaming and all of that, she said it was just a lot of fun, and obviously being wide open for most of the track, she was absolutely loving it. So that's a good sign. But yeah, we did sort of point out that it was a bit like sort of a two-wheel Formula V racing, and we know how good Formula Vs are at the island when they've got a big field there. I mean, we've seen some insane racing there over the years at the state level, and when they have their nationals as well. But anyway, so that's coming up this weekend, so have a look at that tomorrow night at 9 o'clock on Channel 31 and 9:30 on demand on the YouTube channel. Okay, well, let's talk about what's happening. While you're there, Dave, and we've got you because you probably know the guy. We have, or will soon have, a new Motorsport Australia CEO. That was news that broke last night, seconds before we were due to go to air. We had to do a quick rewrite of the news. So, do you know? Do you know our new CEO well? Because he races in the sports car, the Victorian Sports Car Championship.
Yes, we can claim a small degree of fame. So the recent successful candidate through the selection process for the Chief Executive Officer of Motorsport Australia is Sunil Vora. Sunil is a production sports car racing Victoria member. Has been running a Porsche 997 Series 2 Cup car in production sports car events the last year or two. He's a grassroots racer. He's one of us, if I can put that out there. But huge amount of experience in management and leadership, particularly in digital transformation. And as Motorsport Australia, takes those steps to embrace what modern motorsport and what modern motorsport administration looks like. A really, really good appointment. Certainly someone who's not just been at the coalface. They've been there with us. Has insight into what some of the challenges are for a grassroots motorsport competitor. But also understands what it's like to work with professional teams. And certainly, I think someone who'll bring, after the wealth of professional sports and probably dealing with government experience that Eugene Arocca brought to the organisation, and we say thank you to Eugene for his tenure. I think Sunil is someone who's going to bring that next level and next iteration of modern business practice to the FIA ASN in Motorsport Australia. Particularly as we look at all the challenges facing Formula One. Obviously what supercars has gone through. The stratification of the sport. The potential for esports, particularly the recruitment and retention of both new and old officials. In all disciplines of the sport, not just circuit racing, rallying, off-road, autocar, carnacross, all the different disciplines and difficulties that the sport faces. Certainly someone I'm certainly looking forward to what they bring and how they approach the role.
Yeah, well, it certainly is. It's back to the future, really, isn't it? I mean, after sort of getting someone from outside of the sport. I mean, we've had a couple of people from outside the sport. Sometimes it was successful. And I'd say that Eugene has been. Apart from I mean, there's been criticism of Eugene in the past, but a lot of people don't know a lot of the stuff that Eugene has done behind the scenes that has really, that has done wonders for the sport. And you mentioned um, the government support for the sport now, and the relationship with governments, state and federal, since he's been involved, because that was one of the things that when he first took the job, that he said he couldn't really believe how little how little contact there was between what was in CAMS and all of Sports Australia and all different government bodies. He said they were very ignorant of the sport. They were very dismissive of it because they really knew nothing about it. No one had really put in that time and effort to make those connections, which Eugene did, and which he had as a result of the fact that, as he said, sort of being involved in AFL in Melbourne opens an awful lot of doors, and those doors were used to the advantage of motorsport all up. And I know, from a personal point of view, stuff, without going into detail, stuff that he did for us sort of behind the scenes to help us on a couple of occasions when we were when things were looking a bit dodgy. So congratulations to Eugene. He's supposedly heading off for retirement now, or whatever he's doing. But so we look forward to speaking to Sunil as soon as he once he gets sort of settled in and gets his feet under the desk and gets into the joint. Well, hopefully we'll have a chat with him early next year.
I'll definitely look forward to it. I'll let him know where the studio is.
Yes, we'll certainly be telling him. Now we got a couple of stuff. Now, g'day Ackers, how are you? He's saying that the Ocean Junior Cup will be on the following weekend because I know the Superbikes was scheduled. That certainly wasn't what Ella and everyone was saying last night, was it, Pete? Yeah, so I'll have to find out. Yeah, they were saying that she was going, because we said about racing this weekend, and she said, we talked about the weather, and I'll have to check into that because that was certainly not what we'd been told. I know the Superbikes were down there because I mean we did try. Obviously, we tried to get somebody from one of the MotoGP classes, any of them, and that was sort of a dead end. We got absolutely no response from either the Grand Prix Corporation or Motorcycling Australia to sort of to make someone available. Tried for a couple of the Superbike people, and they sort of said, bad week for it. We're flat out. So and then eventually found Ella's profile on social media, and and she said, I'd love to come in. So, but anyway, either way, whether she's this week or next week, I mean, if she's next week, go down and cheer her on. But let's find out. We've also got Paul saying that Travis Holt and Martin Pakula from the Grand Prix Corporation mentioned they're looking at replacing pit lane and race control buildings. They've been talking about that for a while.
They also, sorry.
Yeah, go on, Pete.
They also said that if you've attended the Grand Prix in the last 5 years, you'll be given priority. And before COVID, they had this advantage program where if you attended for the last 20 years, you got priority. Tickets priority.
Yeah, well, so they should. I mean, people like yourself who have been to every Grand Prix and then and then get in early and book for the whole 4 days, should be rewarded for their loyalty and given that opportunity, which has sort of disappeared for a while. So we don't know. We don't know who Andrew. Do we know who Andrew's replacement is yet? Has that been announced?
Travis Holt.
Oh, it was Travis. Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I haven't. Yeah, so obviously we haven't chatted with him yet. Hopefully, we'll get him in if we're still around next year as well. So that's someone else we shall we'll chat to. Oh, okay. Paul saying the Junior Cup we're running both weekends at Phillip Island. Might might actually get down to the following weekend. Although I realise I've got to I might not be in a good position to get down there because Saturday night I'm attending the Australian Community Television Awards, the Antenna Awards, for which we have we've been nominated. So I'm going to sort of head off for best sports show. So there you go. So
if you're going to win, you'll be on the aisle and up towards the front.
Yes.
Can I ask where you're seated?
I haven't got my seat. Probably out the back, just somewhere in the foyer, by the kitchen or the toilet somewhere as the door flings open.
You'll get down by the toilet door. Okay, yeah.
Yes, but anyway, so we've been nominated for that, and I was going to send some. Last time we were nominated, I sent someone else along, and they said, "Oh, no, could you? Because if you win, I mean, we'd really like you. We'd really like you to be up there rather than sort of one of the crew or something." It's like, oh, yeah. And what got me was because I've been nominated, I of course have a free ticket, and it includes after ceremony party. So that's what got me there. As soon as I saw those words, I went, yeah, okay, I can do that. I can go.
Does it say and significant other?
No, it does. No, it does. What are you putting up your hand, Richard?
Oh. I've known you a long time. I didn't know it was that significant.
Anyway, okay.
But let's steer it back to motor racing.
Yeah, let's get back to motorsport. Formula One news. It's looking like a bit of a war at Red Bull at the moment. Helmut Marko and Christian Horner. Sort of having a bit of a go at each other. There's rumours of a power struggle that there are people since Dieter Mateschitz died. There's rumours that Marko doesn't really have the pull that he used to have, and that the current management would perhaps like to see Mr. Marko, wander off into the distance, go off into the high security twilight home, and in the meantime. Christian Horner is quite good. Marko has come out and said, they can't, it was in the will. They can't get rid of me. I'm staying. He's about to turn 80, incidentally.
I was led to believe that both his and Sergio Perez's contract comes up at the end of next year.
Next year, yeah, that's it. Also, Sergio.
Yes, but how seriously does either party take a contract in the Red Bull environment?
Well, in Formula One.
In the Formula One environment.
Yeah.
So, but I was led to believe that they probably definitely weren't going to renew Helmut's contract.
He's 80 years old. At the end of next year, he'll be 81. I mean, Bernie's gone on to. He's still firing on all cylinders, albeit somewhat poorer than he was. Last week, but
a bit of strife recently, Bernie.
Yes, he was, but he got out of it remarkably well, considering the huge amounts of money. You and I go in, we got an overdue library book, and we go to jail for 6 months. He defrauds the British government and the taxpayers of something like $700 million or something, and it's like, we've negotiated a deal with Mr. Eccleston, and so he's going to pay back
$11.80.
Yeah, well, that's actually a big slab of money, but he's got more money than God. So, in fact, he is God. I mean, I think we've all established that. We know that at least always thinks he's God, and I'm not going to argue with him because I have no evidence to the contrary. So anyway, Box saying that I will be near the bar. Yes, if the bar is open before, during, or after, you know where you'll find me. Always in the kitchen at parties, always by the bar.
You thought we were going there.
Yeah, so that's it. It'd be interesting if I do. And the winner is in pit lane. Oh shit!
Yes.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to say something incredibly libelous to Mr. Addis, and I'll tell you.
It's pointing at the screen. We added more to climate global warming than any other sport. That will go well.
Yep. Jimmy K63 saying Red Bull smokescreen, nothing to see here, but what if it's not motorsport related? Well, yeah, I mean, it certainly sounds like. I mean, we know that Helmut had a very strong friendship and relationship with Dieter Matrix, and that's sort of how how Red Bull got involved in motorsport to the level that they are now. But also the fact that with Ford coming on board just around the corner, they might not be too keen on having a helmet involved as well. So there could be pressure at that end with Ford turning around and saying, love the car, love that newie chap. He's very good, and the young Max, he's got potential, that boy. But yeah, the old guy. Let's perhaps send him out.
And I think there was a bit of friction between Christian Horner and Helmut Marco over Nick de Vries, the signing of Nick de Vries.
Yeah, well, that certainly didn't work out well for anybody. Certainly not for Nick. But and it looks like that he's going to end up as one of the many sort of who's going to end up in the World Endurance Championship. We've got young Mick Schumacher will be testing at Jerez with Alpine on Tuesday coming up. So he's got the test with of their new hypercar, so he'll be behind the wheel there. At Petit Le Mans on the weekend, Jenson Button was saying he's really, really enjoying his sports car racing, and he's definitely keen to be doing more, and perhaps on a full-time basis next year. And there's rumours going around that at least for Le Mans, he may well be joined by Sebastian Vettel. So that's good. Mark, I think you watched a lot of Petit Le Mans on the weekend as well. I stayed up way too late and to get through
that's
it
the
all.
problem with that's the problem with watching the big endurance races. The longer you watch them, the harder you push yourself to watch it. The less you remember going out the other end because you've exhausted yourself. But no, that was it got down to a fascinating finish because we had like 4 or 5 driver pairings were in the hunt for the title coming into the including our own Matt Campbell, although he was very much the 5th pairing. But they lost their teammates out of the race early, the other Porsche, which had the better chance at the title than Matt's car. So that then left a showdown in the last couple of hours between the BMW, the senior BMW pairing, the pardon me, the Meyer-Shank Acura, and the Cadillac from.
And it was interesting. It was
team whose name
because they sort of, I think it was Whelan. I think it's
Whelan Engineering. Yeah. There we go. Because that's right. Because the other Cadillac team, of course, is Chip Ganassi. And that's an easier one to remember.
That's the easy one. That's the easy one to remember. And and they eventually, the Cadillac team, Pippa Durrani and I forget
Alexander Sims.
Alexander Sims were the winners of the championship. And the race went to the Meyer-Shank Racing Acura, which included another long distance classic win for a fellow called Elio Castro Neves, who seems to be quite good at this sort of thing. And just sort of wandering in off the street and jumping into a race car and winning major long distance endurance races. So I don't know if he's doing anything around sort of early October next year, but I'd be making a phone call and saying, "Hey, Elio, you ever wanted to race at Mount Panorama at Bathurst?" Because he's done a great job.
You've been to Australia in October before, you can come back again.
Yes, he's done well. He's there. The food's good. The weather's not too bad. Not too bad at that time of year. Well, it wasn't this year, but yeah, it'd be good to see. But yeah, the thing was that Maya Shank, of course, they won the race, but they're not going to be in the IMSA North American Sports Car Championship next year because they are going to concentrate all their efforts on IndyCar. So and they were looking for another manufacturer because they basically wanted I think more than sort of Honda were prepared to give them. Honda at the moment is sort of it's very much just dipping their toe in the water at the moment, and there's rumours that they will eventually commit to a full-on WEC campaign under the Honda name, but certainly not for next year. And I think
don't forget and guys, don't forget the small matter of the Rolex 24 finish and subsequent post-race investigation that
yes.
put a bit of a sour taste in the mouth for everyone in that team and that manufacturer. Well, not
Yes,
the greatest way to kick off your IMSA season.
Yeah, and they were very fortunate that they got away with a small, relatively small, capacity sort of punishment that they got. That was the word I'm looking for. Because they cheated basically. That was the deal, and they did win the race. They did win the Rolex, and they got to keep their watches. And but yeah, I imagine that sort of particularly being a like a Japanese company, I imagine sort of winning with honor is sort of seems pretty important at that sort of cultural level. And perhaps there were people within Acura who went, we're not. If we are moving on, and if we are going into a sort of a bigger program and a more international program, perhaps we might find somebody else to do that with. So it'll be interesting to see what's happened. We've also lost Glickenhaus, unfortunately. Glickenhaus, who've done a really good job in the WEC as a sort of a privateer entry and really helped keep the hypercar thing alive for a couple of years when it was just basically them and Toyota.
And a grandfathered Alpine, yeah.
Yeah, they've basically they've said that really they just, and it was everyone knew it. You can't sort of spend that money when you're up against some of the biggest manufacturers in the world. It's very, very difficult for a private organisation to produce a car. And as Jim said, we'd have to basically start from scratch again, build a whole new major evolution of the car, and it's just they just don't have the money and resources to do it. So unfortunately, Glickenhaus is gone, but they will be replaced. They've got some adequate replacements there in Alpine and Lamborghini and BMW and
and don't forget the other announcement. Obviously, McLaren announced that they had selected United Autosport as their representative team for WEC in LMGT3 if they happen to be invited to enter. And obviously the links between McLaren and United run deep, of course, because Zach Brown is at the head of both organisations. And one might expect that McLaren's probably working on a LMDH/GTP in the background, and has been rumoured to have been working on one for several years. But if the SCG 007, I think it was, the Glickenhaus program was not viable, what chance do we give the continuation of whatever Colin Collars is calling his program this week, or the yet to debut in the championship Isotta di Francescini? These are both effectively privateer hypercar efforts, not running on the common spine of the next generation LMP2 cars, like the Porsche and the Cadillac are at the moment in WEC. So far, that they've only talked about single car entries. Will they get a season or more, if at all? It's the machinations of trying to figure out just how many cars are going to be on the grid and in what configurations for the 2024 WEC, because of course they're limited by the largest number of cars they can have in the smallest pit lane, which, depending upon how you configure it, I think is either 36 or 38 cars. And they've already announced that they will let only 2 GT3 cars from each brand turn up, which at the moment they're looking, I think it's somewhere between 16 to 18 GT3 cars, which would be 8 or 9 manufacturers, which limits you then to sort of 20 to 22 possibly LMDH and LMH cars. We've already got 5 Porsches, 2 Toyotas, 2 Peugeots, 2 Ferraris. We're also going to have probably 2 BMWs, at least 1 Cadillac, 2 Alpines, at least 1 Lamborghini. And there is the possibility, as you mentioned, of Honda or Acura turning up. It's not just as simple as rocking
up. And Aston Martin.
Well, Aston Martin, obviously, that was the other big announcement during the week. The partnership between Aston Martin, Prototype Technologies, and Heart of Racing. Of course, this is the rebirth of the AMR Pro Valkyrie, that was going to be the road-going hypercar turned into a racetrack hypercar that then didn't get turned into a hypercar, so they turned it into a super hyper track day special car, and now they've turned it back into a super ultimate LMH hypercar. Of course, they'll be testing that through 2024 and debuting it. Interestingly, not only will they be contesting the WEC in 2025 with 1 car, but they've also announced their intention to be the first of the Le Mans hypercar regulation cars entered into IMSA, which of course comes with a whole host of other technical and homologation specialities, because of course, unlike a GT3 car, which is FIA homologated, and then you just bolt in whatever ballast is specified by the sanctioning body and whatever restrictors are required on the engine and the tyres that are supplied by the tyre supplier. When it comes to the LMH and LMDH cars, although they're built to effectively the same set of technical regulations, because they're wind tunnel tested separately. IMSA does all their testing in the I believe in the Windshear wind tunnel, and they do a whole bunch of performance testing at the NASCAR Tech Center. Whereas, of course, the ACO and the FIA do a lot of testing over in Europe. While the fundamentals of the cars are the same, there is a substantial amount of bodywork changes, electronics changes, as well as BOP and other regulatory changes that are different between the cars. So
yeah, it'll be interesting, because John Doonan from IMSA said on the weekend at Petit Le Mans that the 2 groups were going to work as closely. ACO and IMSA were going to quote work as closely as possible to make sure that that procedure went as smoothly as possible, and that there wouldn't be sort of like major differences between the 2 sets of regulations. So, because I think what everybody was worried about is that they'd have to, if the hypercars come in, it might be interesting sort of for the Daytona 24, because there is talk that at some stage Ferrari have sort of said that one day they would like to go back and compete at the 24 hour of the Daytona 24 hour. So be interesting if they took their car in terms of what they would have to, they might have to do to make the car legal over there. But John Doonan said that they had there were representatives of the ACO at Road Atlanta, and they got together and were talking about the challenges ahead. But if you think parity in supercars is difficult, try and get this done. I mean, this is an absolute nightmare. Speaking of supercars, they're sort of around the corner. The Gold Coast is happening, and we're losing the tire, the dreaded tire barrier, the stack of tires that was on at the one of the chicanes, which lots of people crashed.
Yeah, the back was a good
word.
Yeah, they're going to be replaced by electronic sensors, which
they're going to be retired.
Retired, yes. Thank you.
The puns flow thick and fast.
I can see.
So,
When it comes to puns about tyre bundles, I've got stacks of them.
bob on.
I can see it being a good thing in one respect because the steering arms are so fragile on the Gen 3 cars. But I can also see track limits penalties being given out like lolly water over that weekend.
That's the worry, isn't it? I mean, that we get to that stage that we are in. You seem to be in Formula One at the moment.
Peter, I like the way that you adjusted your catch or your phrase or your colloquialism to appropriately suit the Gold Coast environment, because yes, there will be lots of people consuming copious amounts of lolly water up and down the Surfers Paradise beaches and in the apartments and in the walkways and in the public areas of the Boost Mobile Gold Coast 500.
I've had the odd lolly water myself there at times.
Yeah, what are they? What was the old description of the Gold Coast event? Schoolies for adults.
Yeah,
Schoolies for toolies.
Yeah, well, it was a bit like that. Although I think I haven't been for many years. I mean, basically since IndyCar left, I haven't been. But I've been told. So, Mark, you'd probably know. I mean, like I've been told it's calmed down a lot from the IndyCar days.
It's not like it once was, but as we say about so many things, and we don't have we don't barbecue small Japanese cars at the top of the mountain anymore. So it's
that was wonderful. The things I saw up there.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
Yeah, the shorter course cuts out some of the makes some of the accommodation towers a little bit further away from the track, so it's just...
some of the undesirables.
Well,
we're not there, are we, Brett?
Yeah. Well, we're not there, but some of the undesirables were quite desirable because I desired them. But I don't think I speak for many here.
I'm going to be black banned. But no, but it's still great fun. The Gold Coast event, it's and the upper end of the course is still, and you still got that magnificent grass spectator area at the top of the course. That's always a great fun place to be.
It was that were the two really fun races. The Gold Coast and Adelaide were always the two interstate rounds that I was really keen. It was like people said, are you going to the Bathurst 1000? No, if I had the resources to go to supercar rounds interstate, there's probably three that I'd still want to go to. One that I haven't been to. I'd like to go back to Adelaide. I'd like to go back to the Gold Coast, and I'd really love to do Darwin. That would be fantastic.
Hands down, can recommend Darwin.
Darwin's top of my list.
Well, it's top of the country.
It is.
And certainly, in terms of accessibility for grassroots races, it is actually one of those massive events that you can partake in, because, of course, the local support category that they get for that event used to be a solely an improved production grid. Of course, improved production, well over 500 cars around Australia, but it's actually a combined sedan category for Hyundai Excels, Holden HQs, vintage Commodore.
They've still got some old Commodore Cup, first generation Commodore Cup cars,
VH Commodore Cup cars, and of course improved production cars. So Hyundai Excels over four. How many up to now, Richard? 400, 450, 500 of those?
Yeah, something like that.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Not including all the ones that are in your driveway, I'm sure.
I'm down to 4 now.
So the great thing about that northern swing, Darwin does have its, it is truly the event in the city, in the same way that the Adelaide Grand Prix and now the Adelaide 500 is the event in Adelaide. The event in Darwin is the event. The Gold Coast event I still wonder if you remember back to before COVID kicked in, or at least when it was kicking in. Obviously, the Adelaide event was rumoured to be moving to the end of the year, but then they pulled out entirely, and then so Newcastle was going to the start of the year, and then they were going to end the season, I think, in 2021. They were going to run the Gold Coast as a street race, but as a night race, if you remember back to 2021. And of course, at the end of 2021, we had a number of border closures and COVID shutdowns, which of course led to the termination of that season with a 6-day racing extravaganza at Bathurst. But I just wonder if the future of the event is still in that October window as a traditional, 250k races for a single driver, or whether it might look to going under lights to try to, find a little bit more of a unique flavour. And of course, the big news in supercars at the moment or the unspoken news in supercars at the moment, speaking of 6-day extravaganzas as Bathurst, is that the contractual negotiations between the Newcastle Council and the New South Wales state government continue. And in the midst of the standoff, I believe there's some discussion that the backup option is a 10-day racing festival or a 10-day automotive festival at Mount Panorama in February to kick off the season.
It's interesting. They're talking about doing that because it gets them out. They're limited to 5 meetings a year, but apparently within the regulations, it doesn't say how long those meetings actually take place. So they've said, well, if we sort of, like start on Thursday and then go through, sort of a whole 10 days to sort of, to Sunday week, and basically have something happening every single day. And as you say, like an automotive festival, you can imagine, and because they already have, like a drive day on Monday, and manufacturers, you would imagine, would be very keen to get out there and for their well-heeled customers to sort of say, come up to Mount Panorama and spend a couple of days, go see the 12-hour or go see the opening. What worries me is that this was always the thing that everyone was worried about when supercars took over the 12 hours, is that it would be sort of more or less slowly pushed into the background, because there was talk at one stage that they were going to have the launch of the season at Bathurst, and that thankfully didn't happen. Although in one way it makes sense because all of the international media was there. I know the last time I went up and did the launch of the supercars, which was literally as COVID was literally breaking out, it was straight after the Bathurst 12-hour, and I know that Shay Adam from Radio Show Limited, Radio Le Mans, was still in town because I put something up about being there, and I got a response on Facebook going, "Oh, I didn't know that was on, or I'd have come down. I'm currently on the beach." So she was having so she stayed on and had a bit of a break, but she would, as she said, she would have come down and had a look and had probably done some stuff for midweek motorsport if she'd have known that it was happening. And so I think that makes sense to have it in the all together. I mean, because there will be a lot of international media potentially there, and if you're going to be down here for the 12-hour, well, you might, if it's only another sort of another 5 days later, you might as well stay for the opening round of the supercars as well and kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had it. I just was going back through my head. Hang on, what's on at Bathurst in April? Why have I got my head?
That would be the 6 hour.
6 hour.
Okay. I didn't think it was that early in the
Excels
year.
are running.
I'm having a bit of a brain melt. Sorry.
Yeah, well, what have we got there? Basically, we've got the 12-hour, the 6-hour. We've got the 1,000, and then we've got Challenge Bathurst and the what this year will be the TCR,
World 500 thing.
The Bathurst International. So they're the They're the 5 meetings at the moment. This isn't new. I actually spoke to someone like in the days when Yeehaw was running the 12-hour, because you remember one year they had the Group S sports cars, the vintage sports cars there. And a bit of a discussion, and just came, I said, wouldn't it be great to turn this, turn the 12-hour into basically a Goodwood style event, where focusing with sports cars, because they had Group S sports cars, they had Radicals, and they had. And I said, well, turn it into a sports car festival, and run it over.
The 6-hour meeting used to have that festival name rather than the 6-hour be the headline.
The Festival of Sports Cars.
Yeah, so I think it's it'll be interesting to see what happens. The New South Wales Premier has come out today and been very critical of the council, saying that they're playing politics, and the reason they're playing politics is because politics is very much involved, because there are council elections coming up at the moment. The people, the makeup of the councillors in the area that the race is held in is sort of split between the Greens and Labor and an independent. Labor would like to, the Labor member there would like to keep their position, but if they're, because of the opposition to the race, they've sort of changed their view now. They were very much in favour of the race. Now they've come out and said, no, because we've done the survey now. We've heard from the people, and the people say they don't want it. So now I'm opposed to it. What complicates the matter is that the current state member of parliament is being investigated as yet another New South Wales politician, being investigated by the local anti-corruption commission. And they're saying if he has to stand aside, the current Labor councillor from that particular area of part of Newcastle is the preferred candidate to take his place in a by-election. And once again, they don't want her to be tarnished with the with an unpopular supercar race. Or it's a mixed thing, because this is the problem. I mean, you got the people at that end of town where the cars are actually racing apparently all absolutely hate the thing, whereas pretty much everybody else absolutely loves it. So they're trying to play. They are playing a bit of a balance deal at the moment, a bit of politics, and nothing good ever happens when people start that. So yeah, anyway, we'll see. We'll see what's happening there. Jimmy's saying, yes, the small Japanese car on the mountain was mine. It was chilly up there. Yeah, that's why I was always. I mean, I don't know whether I've been very lucky with my small Korean car. Nobody's tried to torch that yet, so I've been very lucky. Gets here, survived its couple of trips to the mountains, so that's good. But they have cleaned it up. I mean, incredibly, when you compare what it used to be, and that's one of the really good things that Tony Cochran did, because he said, I think it was his wife who went up there and sort of gave the feedback as to how bad it was, and it was really bad. I mean, I never really,
insane. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that, Richard, you knew Melissa well and all the rest of it. The fact that Melissa was saying, I'm not going there. I'm scared. Nothing scared her, but she said, I went once. And as she said every time she left the tent and went to go to the toilet or something, it was like the mob descended, and she said she said it was awful. She said it was just terrible. So they've cleaned it up a lot, and that's one thing somebody said this year. An international someone on YouTube went up there for the first time and said how good it was. In fact, there was a guy, a horse racing guy on SEN, the radio station down here. I think it was last week, possibly last Thursday or something. Had been up to Bathurst, and I forget his name now, but he's a leading sort of trainer and racehorse owner here in Victoria, and he was on to do his horse racing thing on SEN and was talking to the host, and it was very clear the host had sort of the old Bathurst and had no knowledge at all of motorsport, because he was doing all the jokes about, you're up at Bogan Central and, you survived. I mean, we are bashed. Was your car set on fire? It must have been awful up there with all those hoons. And he just came and he said, look, I've never been to a car race in my life. Somebody invited me up. We went up there. He said, it was one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. The family came with me. We all loved it, and we are definitely going back next year. He said we're hooked now. He said it was a great atmosphere. Everybody was friendly. Everybody was great. The kids were up there. The families were up there. We all camped, and everything was everybody was wonderful. And yes, if you haven't been, go up there because it was a great experience. And this is someone who had no connection with the sport at all in the past. And he just said it was fantastic. So things have clearly improved.
Well, it's only taken about 20 odd years, mind you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has. Well, as Jimmy's saying, I mean, the bike races were a little bit different. Talking about the Easter.
I don't believe it could be worse.
No, because we had full-scale riots, like literally riots.
Well, that's where the emergency services bunker came from, up at the top of the mountain.
Yes.
That was
any of you seen Apocalypse Now when they're bombing the bridge? It was like that, except a lot worse.
A lot worse. Yeah, some of the photos from around that time. I mean, at the top of the mountain was glowing with all the burning cars and buildings and trees and God knows what, and tents and everything that was happening up there. It was crazy in the days of the bikes, but they've tidied that up.
I suppose they did keep the kangaroo population under control, and now in their absence, they've moved in and they're spectators now.
Well, that's what we've got to look forward to this week. Is how they is once again, the motorcycle v local wildlife. I'm not sure what they're doing to try and keep the. As I said, I mean, keeping the wallabies and the kangaroos and the echidnas and everything off the track is one thing, and it's probably is a lot more manageable. But how the hell they keep those Cape Barren geese away?
They're big buggers.
Oh, they're huge. They're huge. Well, I mean, I think we said a couple of weeks ago. If you wouldn't even. You can't even contemplate the result of what would happen if one of those if a bike hit one of those at full whack in the wrong spot. It'd be a disaster. So because they're huge birds. They wrote off, if you remember, quite a few years ago, they wrote off a Group N Mustang. Guy came round onto the main straight and collected one and absolutely wrote off his car. It was a big whack, and they're serious signs are seriously large birds. Okay, so we've got anything else? Well, let's go through quickly. We'll wrap it up. With Doc isn't here, of course. Doc has working commitments at the moment, so it makes it very hard for him to get here. So in terms of the MotoGP, Indonesia was a great race. Anybody see Indonesia? Want to have a quick word about it?
No,
it was an insane race. Pecco Bagnaia came from well back down and set a record first. It was the furthest start.
Furthest back on the grid.
Furthest back on the grid in a dry race since about 1999 or something. So he drove an amazing race to keep in contention. He regained the championship lead because Jorge Martin won the sprint race on Saturday to take the lead by about 3 points. But then, of course, Pecco came through and won on Sunday and had a great dice at the end of the race with Fabio Quartararo and I've forgotten the name of who he was dicing with now, and I read it last night on the news. But anyway, it was a great dice. It was a great race, and it should be another great race this weekend. Most of the riders
sprint race on Saturday,
and a weather forecast which is interesting.
Well, it's typical Phillip Island. I mean, sort of, like we were talking about this with Ella last night. The funny thing was, because I said, the rain is one thing, but it's the wind. I mean, they're talking on Saturday of winds of up to 45, 50 kilometres an hour in Melbourne. So down there, it'll be even worse. And it was interesting. Her response was really interesting, is that she said, at least in her class, she said the wind didn't worry them that much. She said once you got used to it, and you knew it was there, she said it was, as far as she was concerned anyway, she was fine with it. But they are talking about certainly showers on Saturday, and then they're talking about late afternoon thunderstorms on Sunday afternoon. So yeah, that could be because, and I know well about thunderstorms at Phillip Island because that's where I was hit by lightning. So
is that your?
Yes.
Is that the reason why?
What's the weather going to be like at Phillip Island? All of it.
All of it, yeah, literally. Jimmy asking Jack Miller to Honda next year. No, I believe that he has. I believe that he has committed, and KTM have committed to him for next year as well. So yeah, I wasn't sure about that. I thought that he might be going elsewhere, and I thought he might end up back on one of the Ducati satellite teams because he had a really good relationship with Ducati, and they were actually quite sad to see him sort of leave the fold. So I thought that he might end up back there at some stage with KTM, but apparently the KTM factory team have come out and said that no, everything will stay. It'll be Brad Binder and Jack as the riders for next year. So at least that's the last thing I remember reading about that. As I said, if Doc was here, because he's all over the top of the bike stuff. But anyway, so that's coming up the weekend.
They do have what, 5 signed up riders and four bikes. So KTM does have a situation to solve.
Yeah, well, I think the situation is one of those riders, and I forget who it was now, was basically told, you're going to be our first reserve, our test rider for all of those teams. So anything happens, and I mean with motorcycle racing, there's usually opportunities due to injury, unfortunately, during the year to pick up a few rides here and there. I mean, we saw Danny Pedrosa make a comeback just recently, and quite a successful one. Showed that he'd lost none of his talent, and he came back and rode really well, sort of replacing an injured rider. But yeah, I don't know if anybody there. I think last night, or for this week's show, I thought that Bagnaia would win. I still go with that. I think the Ducatis will be very fast at Phillip Island, and Bagnaia apparently really likes the circuit there. Most of the riders do. I mean, there's a couple of them. I think, in fact, it was Marquez who said that it was far from his favourite track. But I think pretty much everyone else, it was certainly. I know Valentino Rossi loved the place. Most of the riders, the late Nicky Hayden, just absolutely adored it. So lots of riders have really do love the circuit. As in fact does our guest tomorrow night, Ella McCausland, and so you can see her at 9:00. On Channel 31. If you're interstate or if you happen to be watching overseas, the CTV Plus app, you can go online to the App Store for your iOS or for the Google Play Store, and you can download the CTV Plus app where you can watch Channel 31 and indeed Channel 44 Adelaide live on your online. So you can watch us there. We're not up. They don't put the program up, unfortunately, on the thing once it's over. It goes live, and the repeat on Saturday afternoon also goes live, but they don't archive the show there because it's basically a news show, and they've got very low budget, very low storage. They've decided not to put us up, and also the fact that we pop it up anyway onto our YouTube channel. So of course, if you want to watch that, 9:30, there's bonus content from Ella McCausland, and also bonus musical content from our band, I Don't Know. And I have to say, I think that, and this has happened a few times, where the bonus song for the YouTube video and for the live stream is much, in my opinion, much better than the one that they took us out with on 31. I mean, so you can watch that tomorrow night from 9:30 on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. But anyway, that's I think that's all we've got time for this week. So we might say goodbye to you all. Have a good weekend. Enjoy MotoGP if you are in fact watching. Here we go. He's made talk about fashionably late. He's just sort of popped up for a quick cameo, sort of with yeah.
So that's what all that clattering was about.
Yes.
Yeah. So Yeah, Formula One this week. The return of Formula One this week. The return of Daniel Ricciardo.
Well, he was never going to miss the Texas round, was he?
No, he loves it. He loves that place, doesn't he? He absolutely adores it.
They love him too.
Yeah, oh, that's that. Well, I think that's one of the reasons why I would imagine that sort of there are some at Red Bull who would love him to come back and drive the car. But I mean, they've got such an interesting problem at the moment because they've got Liam Lawson just sitting there waiting to jump into a car, and he's going to Liam's going back to race it in Super Formula in Japan, and I know there's a bunch of Aussies going on, or so we think.
What about Checo?
I hope that he will go back, because I know there's a group of locals, including some Formula V guys, including Daniel Reinhardt. Apparently, I was told, Little Bird told me that Daniel Reinhardt, one of our top Formula V racers over many years, is in fact heading over to Japan to see, because he knows Liam. Apparently, Liam, and I have no recollection of this at all. I got to find out from Daniel what the relationship is, but apparently Liam at one stage apparently did drive a Formula V in Australia. So that's what I've been told anyway. So whether that's the case or not, but I'm told that they are going over to cheer him on in the final round of Super Formula. So yes, and you'll be So that'll be interesting. But Liam, they've got to find a spot for him. I mean, he's done so well. He's obviously shown he's got the ability and the talent to be in Formula One, and hopefully if they're not going to use him, they'll let him go elsewhere, and he can move on to Williams and or Aston Martin, perhaps, if Lawrence Stroll comes to his senses and moves aside his son. But apparently he's not. Apparently now the story is the team have been tasked with pretty much finding excuses. They've got to find out. They've got to find changes were clearly made to the car which didn't suit my boy, and they've got to find out what those changes are, because Fernando is saying, I have no problems with it, but they're sort of saying no, there were changes that were made, and that Lance didn't like them.
Fernando got a bit restless, I think, in Japan. So there was some issue in Japan because he started to get a bit restless.
Well, they haven't been anywhere near as competitive, have they?
No.
What about Checo? Has he got a future? He seems to be losing his way at the moment.
Well, they've sort of, Christian Horner, has come out and basically said he's got, they want to see an improvement from him because, as Christian said, we want a 1-2. They haven't had, despite all their domination over the years, they've never had a 1-2 in the championship. They've had plenty of 1-3, but never a 1-2. And they've said, this is an opportunity for a 1-2 finish, and we really need Checo to pull his finger out. And as he said, now that the championship is wrapped up, there is basically no excuses, because they will be focusing on Checo and his car, and almost intimating that if necessary, and if he's in a position to do it, that Max might even do or be asked to do the right thing. Checo is faster than you, to which Max will go, bullshit.
I can imagine that.
Or at least in Dutch, he'll say that.
You know what happened last time? I'm not doing this because of last time.
Yeah, that's it. It didn't go well the last time, so that'll be interesting. But they have made it very clear. I mean, certainly Christian's made it very clear that he wants to see some improvements in Checo. And there were rumours which he is denying. I mean, it's in that's going through now, actually. Sergio Perez, there were rumours that he would announce at the Mexican Grand Prix, he would announce his retirement, and he's said, no, that's simply not happening. It's not true. I intend to race on. I have a contract, and I intend to continue racing Formula One and racing for Red Bull. So he's sort of ploughing on regardless with that. But you could imagine clearly he's under a lot of pressure and he's not handling it well at the moment. So it'll be interesting to see how he does on the weekend, because he'll have huge amounts of support there. I mean, we know that there's a lot of Mexicans, down in Texas, a lot of expats, the ones that can legally come over the border and the ones who illegally come over the border. Both of them will be there in huge numbers to and obviously cheering him on. So good luck to him, and we'll see how he goes. But you can imagine why Red Bull as a company would be very keen to get Daniel on board, because he is very much, he's very much liked in terms of being media friendly. And incidentally, he didn't do a bad job. He was out singing with some country music stars, and he wasn't half bad. So the man
you got
has
to do something when you're not racing full time.
Yeah, well, he did well. He forgot most of the words, but when he remembered the words, he actually sang in tune, and he did pretty well. So he's very media. He is very, very media friendly, and he's got a great personality, and he's loved by the people in America, and obviously loved here as well. Incidentally, just before we go, we'll pull the plug in a moment. But remember, coming up this weekend, the official opening of the Dragway at the Bend. They're still calling it Dragway at the Bend, not the Dragway at Shell v Motorsport Park. So obviously the sponsorship didn't move over to that part of the track, but of the complex. But huge entry fields, huge crowd is expected. All of the reserve seats pretty much sold out really, really quickly. All the camping around the area is sold out. No accommodation, basically between Adelaide and Tail and Bend, all the accommodation is sold. So it's going to be a huge meeting, and it will be televised on 7 Plus. So as well as online, but 7 Plus will have all the action from the Bend, the opening round of the Australian Top Fuel Championship, and a really good field for that as well. Phil Lamartina making a comeback there to Top Fuel Racing. Really good field. So that's coming up this week, and a bit of history. So hopefully we'll have the opportunity to report about that next week. I'm actually trying to see if I can find someone who competes over there to perhaps come on the show next week and have a bit of a chat about it, then find out what they thought, because the feedback from everybody who's raced there so far has been fantastic. The interesting thing is Steve Betts, who went over there and became the general manager for the opening. The opening is on this weekend, and today he announced that he's leaving. So that's interesting. But I don't know whether that was just that he went over there, with the idea of getting it up and running, and now it is up and running. He's prepared to say, okay, well, I've done my bit, and he'll go back to Queensland where he was living, where I think he's, obviously his family is, and obviously he's enjoyed his time living up there. So he's heading up and going there. But for this weekend anyway, he's still in charge, and everybody's saying it's going to be a great meeting. So that's coming up. And if you don't watch that, watch the Grand Prix from Phillip Island and whatever else is floating around online as well. I'm sure you'll find plenty to amuse yourself with. Okay, everybody.
Queensland Raceway on Saturday.
Here we are. I've got the details of Liam Lawson. There you are. Liam Lawson raced in the State Series. Did 3 races, 1 podium. Oh, also, yes, of course he did race in Cairns Formula 4, because I've just realised now that you've actually said that, Box. I've just realised we interviewed him down at Phillip Island. I'm sure. Yes, we did. Yeah, I had forgotten all about that. I'll have to see if I can find that, because yes, we did interview him, because I remember chatting to him because he was the New Zealand driver. So I had forgotten all about that. So there you go. So anyway, we'll see you next week. I hope you watch the show tomorrow night. Hope you enjoy it. But until we see you again next week on Full Course Yellow, as everything's sort of slowly winding down, we'll see you next week, same time, same bat channel, and we'll see you tomorrow night on channel 31 for In Pit Lane. Okay, everyone. See you next week.
Bye. Night.
Bye.